contains something that should be preserved, then understand that this is a place that you can bring your stuff to, and they will take good care of it. But first, a little business. Before you leave, there's a survey. And we need to, I'm asking everybody to complete the survey, because what these little pieces of paper do, they tell Fulton County and the commissioners that this place is of value to the community, should be preserved, and should receive funding. In fact, should receive more funding so they can get 2 more tons of air conditioning in here. So please, before you leave, fill out the survey.
Where do we pick them up?
Right back there.
They're on the back desk there, and just pick them up, and it's only like 5 questions. And you know, most people are skeptical when they only get 5 questions, because that means that there's something else that's going to happen, but just 5 questions. And you don't even have to put your name, but if you want to, and tell them how excited you are about this place, please do so. And there are some refreshments over here. And so now when you leave here, you can tell all your friends that you actually could eat some food in a library, but you know that's not allowed, not anywhere. With the tradition of the library, are there any questions that anybody has that you want to ask about Henry Baker or some of the things we did, or?
Will the archives be on display?
They are. Some of the archives are right over here in the cases there. So if you see old documents and pictures, but, and then I guess once I have to let the archivist answer the question, because if you want to come back next week and see something, she can tell you how to do it, or if you can do it.
You can definitely come back if you live here to use the collection. We are an archive, so we make the materials available for research. The materials that are on display just for today, and then they'll be secured in the archives division for researchers to come and use it. We also use materials for exhibition purposes, so when there is an opportunity to exhibit about Mr. Baker or about any kind of history that he was a part of, we'll use that as well. But you're more than welcome to come back and take a look at it.
It's nice to know that if an event comes up that contains that part of history or something about that era, that'll be available to that as well.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the book that's over here. Is that a reprinted book? We see the bound, the hardbound, and then there's a paperback. Is that a reprint, and is it available?
I sent that one in.
Yeah, that was not ours.
It's a reprint of a hard copy.
Okay.
And it's like, I think many years later, different publishers can pick up and reprint other things, and that's how when I began to search, I found it out there, and I ordered enough copies for all my brothers and sisters, so that's actually my sister's copy that I gave to her for Christmas last year, but I believe you can look online and get a copy of that.
I think you can purchase everything he wrote except the 4 volumes, because that was like a Gutenberg project. So it was like the 4 volumes, and they were passed on to people, and now the Spingarn Library at Howard University has the only copy of that. But that's the listing of the 2,000 patents that were done from 1838 until the time that Uncle Henry was working on it. So, and it's the original documents. He copied, I guess when you're a copyist, that's what you do, you copy, and he copied the drawings and everything else. So it's fascinating if you can get an appointment and get permission to, if you happen to be in Washington, to look at those documents. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is there any effort to bring that information online so that it can be viewed by others all over?
It's my understanding that the Spingarn collection at Howard University has some of the papers, and I'm not sure where they are with digitizing materials. our library has a digitization project, not for that collection. We could certainly digitize some of the items in the collection and make it available for researchers. But in terms of bringing the two collections together, that's something that we can talk to Dr. Howard Dotson about, who's now the new director of the Moreland Spingarn Center. But let me just say this, if you are interested in researching the collection and you are out of town, you could actually write to us via email or call us. And at this point, we would be available to scanning a picture or two and sending it to you via email. So there's some forms that you have to fill out, but I can make those available to you as well.
The other question I have is, we scanned all of our material before we needed it. Would it be beneficial for us to give you guys a file, a copy of everything that's already been, or is that a repeat?
No, that would be great.
Okay, then I'll take that one.
Yeah, except depending on the size of it.
Okay.
So that would be excellent. And I also want to say thank you for being our advocate for the research library, and also to recognize the citizens of Fulton County actually voted for a $25 million bond referendum for our library, and also a multi-million-dollar bond referendum for the library system. So we're actually now in the process of working with architects on a major expansion of this building. So if you come back in a year and a half, you'll be nice and cool. But you'll also be in a different kind of programming space. And so we're really excited about that. We hope that you come back and take advantage of this public space.
I also want to take this opportunity to recognize a woman who's unable to be here for health reasons. Some of you who work here know of Ms. Henderson. And she was phenomenal. She is the current administrator here at the library, and she is a combination of a very powerful, intelligent, passionate woman who's very invested in culture and art and across the histories of every person. But she's also a little girl inside of a grown woman's body that comes very much alive with life. And you find that out within the first 5 minutes of talking with her. And I was just so blessed to meet her when we first came to this library. Rodney had met her before I had met her. And she was like the impetus for how we got to where we got to today. She let us, Rodney was instrumental in setting up an interview with her, right? And so even before we got to, my sister and I came here from Michigan to begin the process of the research and stuff, he had set it up so we could interview her. And during that conversation, she helped us understand the depth of how important it is to continue to gather your family stuff and to protect it properly, and just kind of the place it takes in history. And it was from that conversation that Rodney and I began to think, I'm here, the stuff is here, the library's here. We think we're doing a good job, but we got some coffee stains on it already, and pretty soon they're going to be destroyed. And so I just want to recognize her for who she is, and I'm excited to know her as an individual, but I'm really appreciating all the work that she's done for this library and what legacy she's going to leave. And so I just wanted to thank her publicly.
Any questions? Well, one final thing, because all my relatives know that I always have to have the last word anyhow. What is happening today and what we're celebrating is just a mere step in the saga of the family. And what we promise to ourselves and everybody else is that we will continue our work to get the commission, but then as we do further research, we find out more about the family. So this won't be the last bit of information that we pass on to the library, and I'm hoping that we can bring a lot more valuable information. But for everybody who is here, just look at the library's website, because maybe a year from now, we'll be doing something else, or maybe we can talk the Navy into coming down and hand us the certificate, the commission, so that we can give that to the library and close out what our parents have started doing. and moving forward. But we are extremely proud, and the reason why we use the word catalyst was because many, if not all of those 2,000 people who got patents during that period of time, Uncle Henry was really the only person of color in the building to look at that paperwork and do something with it. So we like to think that he participated in that. So we hear about the inventions and all that kind of stuff, but nobody ever knows about the guy who's sitting in the office who was doing all the work. That was Uncle Henry. We're proud of that. But what has happened is that our parents, they looked at Uncle Henry and Uncle Jane and my grandfather and all of them because they served as role models. And after you get to see all the things that Uncle Henry did, what came out the next generation are teachers, public servants, all kinds of people who benefit society. And we benefit it without even thinking about it. So we're especially proud of that legacy that we've received from great Uncle Henry and all of our forebears. We're proud of that. And anytime you run into a Baker or a Jones or a Dockery, we're going to talk about our family. And we encourage each one of you to do the same, because there's something special about every human being, and there's something special about every family. And if there are no more questions, then we would like to thank you very much. Yes, sir.
I think you ought to recognize your mom. She's the one who brought you. She hasn't been
Right.
mentioned.
Well, my mother married a Baker, but she is a Lewis Davis, and that will be the next piece of information that we bring in. And fortunately, there's a lot, because they had a lot of educators and teachers, and there's a lot of written history with the Lewises and Davises, because we've gone all the way back to 1798 when Moses Davis was born. I think he was my great-great-grandfather, but he was a slave, and he ended up with the whole plantation after the Civil War, and pretty much all of that land is still in family hands in Claiborne Parish in Louisiana. And he was instrumental in getting the first post office named after a black person.
Wow.
It was called Holsey Stop. You can still send a letter to somebody in the friendship community and put Holsey Stop, and the postman will bring it to them. But Bishop Holsey was the first bishop of the CME Church, and the Holsey family is a large contingent of the Holseys here in Atlanta. But Moses Davis put up half the money to start the CME Church. And so we're compiling all that, so maybe in a year or two, we'll come back and tell you about that side of the story. And my mother hates for me to do this, but she's 92. And if you happen to be driving through Union City, anywhere near the post office, you see this little white car, and you don't see anybody, but you see this little white hat. That's her. So just move out the way and let her get it. That's her daily drive, and she comes back home. But we will be back on both sides, but we don't say that just to put accolades on us. We say it as encouragement to each one of you to look. And something that you may think is just frivolous, if it has an old date on it, read it and bring it down here and let somebody take a look at it. You're very encouraged to do that. And please, are we allowed to bless the food in the county building? Pastor, if you would do us honor, please, and then we can partake of the food.
Let us pray.